Have you ever been driving late at night and suddenly felt like the road didn't want you there? Not danger you could see. Not something obvious. Just a deep, unexplainable feeling in your chest, like if you kept going, something bad would happen. Most people ignore that feeling. I didn't. And because of that, I'm still alive to tell this story. This isn't one experience. It's not even two. Over the years, I've had multiple encounters on the road. Moments where everything looked normal on the surface, but felt deeply wrong underneath. Empty towns that didn't make sense. Strangers who tried a little too hard to help. Roads that seemed to lead nowhere on purpose. Every story I'm about to tell you is real. No monsters. No ghosts. Just people, places, and situations that felt like traps. And once you hear them, you'll understand why trusting your instincts isn't superstition, it's survival. Story 1, The Town That Wouldn't Let Me Leave. Back in my early 20s, I decided to uproot my entire life. I packed everything I owned into a rented truck and started a solo cross-country drive. No smartphone. No live maps. Just printed directions and blind faith. At first, the drive felt freeing. Highways stretched endlessly. Music played low. My thoughts wandered. Then somewhere between cities, far from anything familiar, I made my first mistake. I waited too long to stop for gas. The fuel needle hovered just above empty as the road grew darker and emptier. No exits. No lights. No signs of life. I remember thinking, if my engine dies out here, no one will find me until morning. That's when I saw it. A tiny town appearing out of nowhere. One gas station. A handful of roads. No visible movement. I didn't care how strange it looked, I pulled in. The pump worked. The lights were on. Everything looked normal. But the moment I tried to leave, I realized something was wrong. No matter which road I took, I ended up back where I started. I drove around that town again and again. Streets looped. Roads dead-ended. At one point, I could see the highway in the distance, but every attempt to reach it failed. It felt deliberate. Like the town was designed to confuse outsiders. That's when I went inside the gas station. The gas station door made a sharp chiming sound when I pushed it open. Inside, the place smelled like old coffee and dust. The lights were on, but they flickered slightly, like they were struggling to stay awake. The shelves were half-stocked. Nothing felt abandoned, just neglected. Like no one cared enough to update anything. Behind the counter stood a man flipping through a magazine. He didn't look up when I walked in. I waited a second, then cleared my throat. "Hey," I said. "I'm trying to get back to the highway. I keep looping around town." He sighed, annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. Slowly, he raised his head just enough for me to see part of his face. Long black hair hung forward, greasy and unwashed, partially hiding his eyes. His skin was pale in a way that didn't look natural for someone living out here. He looked tired. Not sleepy tired, worn down tired. Without fully looking at me, he pointed vaguely toward the back of the store. "You gotta take the road past the old culvert," he said. "Follow it out." "How far?" I asked. He flipped a page in his magazine. 17 miles. That number hit me immediately. 17. I repeated. I didn't drive anywhere near that far to get here. He shrugged. Road curves. That was it. No explanation. The second I stepped into the parking lot, my body reacted before my brain did. My hands started shaking. My breathing went shallow. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the steering wheel as my heart pounded hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. That's when another vehicle pulled in. It was an old red pickup truck. rusted around the edges. Loud engine. The kind of truck that had clearly lived a long, hard life. The man who stepped out looked like he belonged out here. Flannel shirt. Work boots. Thick beard. Sun-weathered skin. He moved with confidence, like someone who knew exactly where he was and wasn't afraid of it. I didn't even think. I opened my door and walked straight toward him. "Hey," I said, probably sounding more desperate than I meant to. "Can you tell me how to get back to the highway?" He looked at me for half a second and smiled. "Sure," he said. "You're close." That alone almost made me collapse with relief. He pointed toward a narrow road near the edge of town. "See that little tunnel over there? Concrete one. Just past it there's a turn. No sign. Easy to miss. That's your way out." I blinked. "That's it?" "Yep." "How far?" I asked. He laughed softly. "Quarter mile, maybe." My stomach dropped. I told him what the gas station clerk had said. 17 miles. The smile disappeared from his face. He stared at me for a long moment, like he was deciding how much to say. "Who told you that?" he asked. "The guy inside," I said. His jaw tightened. "Do you have a map?" he asked. I told him I had printed directions, but they didn't show anything around here. He nodded once and walked back to his truck. From behind the seat, he pulled out an old, folded paper map. The kind people used before phones did everything for us. He spread it across his hood and traced a finger along the roads. Then he showed me the route the clerk had described. It curved away from town. Far away. "This road," he said quietly, "leads out into nothing. 17 miles of desert. Dead ends. A few trailers. People you don't want to meet." I felt cold. Why would he send me that way? I asked. The man didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "He lives out there." That was all he needed to say. He looked me directly in the eyes. "You did right trusting your gut," he said. "Don't second guess it." I thanked him more times than necessary, got back in my truck, and took the hidden turn he'd pointed out. Less than a minute later, I was back on the highway. I never looked back. Story 2, The Beach That Wasn't Empty. Years later, I found myself on another road trip. This time with friends. We were camping near the coast. One of those quiet, peaceful campgrounds that feels safe enough to let your guard down. Families during the day. Campfires at night. The sound of waves rolling in. That first night, everyone turned in early. I didn't. I stepped out of the camper and walked toward the water. The moon was bright enough to reflect off the waves. It felt calm. Familiar. Harmless. Down the beach, I noticed a man standing near the shoreline. He wasn't doing anything strange. Just standing there, looking out at the water. Public beach. No big deal. I kicked off my shoes, let the cold water hit my feet, and stayed there longer than I realized. When I finally turned back, the man was gone. I walked up the beach, passing a small wooden storage shack near the edge of the sand. As I got closer, I saw movement. Someone ducked behind it. Not casually. Quickly. Like they didn't want to be seen. Every nerve in my body lit up. I pulled my phone out and called a friend, not because I needed to talk, but because I wanted someone to hear me. I spoke loudly. "I see you," I said into the phone. "Yeah, I'm almost back. Meet me by the camper." I didn't run. I didn't panic. But I gave that shack as much distance as possible and didn't stop walking until I reached the camper door. I locked it behind me and didn't tell anyone what happened. I convinced myself it was nothing. Months later, my friend admitted something. That same night, his younger brother woke up and saw a man standing outside the camper window, staring in. The man ran when he was spotted. Story 3, The Forest Road. Not all danger looks dangerous. Sometimes it looks like someone who needs help. My partner and I were driving through remote forest roads one afternoon when a man stepped out of the trees and waved us down. No car in sight. No explanation for how he got there. He said his battery was dead. We followed him down a narrow, overgrown path to a clearing that didn't show on any map. His car sat there like it didn't belong, wrong type, wrong condition, hood already open. He talked too calmly. Too rehearsed. We helped just enough to leave. As we backed away, he stood perfectly still, watching us. Not waving. Not thanking us. Just watching. Part 3, The Car That Wouldn't Let Go. Some people think being followed only counts if it's obvious. Tailgating. Honking. Aggressive driving. They're wrong. The scariest kind of following is quiet. It's the car that stays just far enough back to seem accidental. The one that mirrors your speed perfectly. The one that never passes, and never falls behind. This happened late one night while I was driving through a stretch of mountain highway. The kind with endless curves, steep drop-offs, and long gaps between exits. I was driving. My friend was asleep in the passenger seat. We stopped briefly at a service plaza to get gas and snacks. Nothing unusual. Almost empty. One other vehicle parked a few pumps over, a dark red SUV. I noticed it, but didn't think twice. About half an hour later, back on the highway, headlights appeared behind us. They stayed there. At first, I assumed they'd pass. I was already going fast, but I slowed slightly to let them go. They slowed too. I sped up. They matched me. I changed lanes. They changed lanes. That's when I woke my friend. I think we're being followed. He didn't brush it off. Didn't joke. Just sat up and watched the mirrors. After a few minutes, he said quietly, "That's the same car from the gas station. We tested it." I slowed to near the speed limit. They stayed behind us. I pulled onto the shoulder and rolled almost to a stop. They stopped too. That was the moment it stopped being coincidence. My friend started grabbing whatever he could find in the cab. Tools. A flashlight. Anything that could be used if things went sideways. He suggested doing something extreme, forcing a confrontation. I didn't want that. Not yet. Instead, he grabbed a powerful handheld spotlight and aimed it out the back window. When he flipped it on, the beam cut straight through the darkness and hit the SUV's windshield. At first, we couldn't see anything. The windows were tinted. Then I swerved lanes slightly, and he hit the light again, this time from the side. For a split second, we saw the driver. Tall. Hunched forward. Hands tight on the wheel. His face was pale and gaunt, stretched in a way that didn't look relaxed or curious. He wasn't surprised we noticed him. He was focused. Locked in. The second he realized we were alert, that we weren't scared enough to freeze, he backed off. Slowed down. Took the next exit and disappeared into the darkness. Neither of us spoke for a long time after that. Part 4, The Road the GPS Shouldn't Have Shown us. This one is harder to explain. Not because it was dramatic, but because it felt wrong in a way I've never experienced before or since. A friend and I were driving home late after a concert. We were tired, hungry, and just wanted to get back. We stopped at a random gas station, grabbed food, and got back on the road. When I checked the GPS, I noticed it had rerouted us. Instead of the interstate, it wanted us to take a back road. I didn't question it. That was my mistake. The second we turned off, the world changed. No streetlights. No houses. No other cars. Just open field stretching into blackness. After several miles, the GPS told us to turn onto an even smaller road. No lines. No signs. Just pavement barely wide enough for one car. We joked nervously about how bad this felt, but neither of us laughed for long. Then the GPS announced a railroad crossing. We didn't see it until we were almost on top of it. Rust-covered train cars sat across the road. No lights. No sounds. No warning signs. Just silent metal blocking the way like it had been there forever. The cars were covered in graffiti. The wheels were corroded. Nothing about it looked temporary. There was no way around. No place to turn forward. The second we stopped, a deep sense of dread hit me, the kind that makes your skin crawl before your brain understands why. I threw the car into reverse, turned around in the grass, and floored it back the way we came. We didn't slow down until we reached the gas station again. When we checked the GPS, the back road was gone. No alternate route. No railroad crossing. Nothing. It just rerouted us back to the interstate like it never happened. Part 5, The Woman Who Followed Me Home. This one still makes my hands shake. I was driving home alone late in the evening after a long trip. After stopping for gas, I noticed a blue sedan pull out behind me. It stayed close. Too close. No matter how I adjusted my speed, it stayed perfectly in sync. I pulled into a small store to see if it was a coincidence. They pulled in too. Nobody got out. I left. They followed. For nearly 90 miles. Through empty highways. Through border crossings. Through areas where my phone had no signal at all. Finally, I pulled into a scenic rest area, fully prepared to confront whoever was doing this. When the window rolled down, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. A middle-aged woman. Normal looking. Calm voice. She claimed she thought I was her daughter. Nothing about that made sense. When I left, she followed again. All the way down the dirt road to my house. She pulled into my driveway. Got out. And asked if she could stay the night. The second another person appeared, she ran. If you take anything from these stories, let it be this. Trust your instincts. Don't be polite when something feels off. And never assume danger will look obvious. Because sometimes, the only reason you're still here is because you left when you did.